What do you call a player who averaged 26, 5, and 5 on 46% shooting, jumps out of the gym, trash talks his favorite basketball player, drops 40 points in the closeout game to sweep him for his first career playoff series win, while dunking on him at the same time, and he seems to play his best with the stakes being the absolute highest? Well, that player would probably convince you he's the face of the NBA. Maybe someone who will enter the GOAT conversation one day, or someone who can be one of the leading candidates for league MVP. According to Michael Jordan himself, this player is, quote, special, and his name is Anthony Edwards. After years and years of debating which NBA player reminds us the most of Michael Jordan, from Allen Iverson, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, Tracy McGrady, LeBron James, and even Kawhi Leonard, no one has quite caught our eye like the 22-year-old Minnesota superstar. And no one has ever drawn such high praise from MJ himself. But the question is Anthony Edwards really the closest we've seen to MJ? Or are our eyes just playing tricks on us again? Well, the answer to that question might not be what you expect. I got a question for you. If you had to pick a player in today's NBA that reminds you the most of Michael Jordan, who would you pick? For so many years, the man who has unquestionably drawn the most comparisons to MJ is LeBron James. But most NBA fans would agree that LeBron is only compared to MJ in terms of where he ranks all time and which of these two players is the GOAT. But the comparisons really kind of stop there. The footwork, the shot tendencies, the defense, the passing, orchestrating an offense, the style, the skillet. MJ and LeBron are completely different in most, if not all, these categories. LeBron's a facilitator at nature, while MJ was a relentless scorer. If you ask Michael Jordan to choose someone that reminds him the most of himself out of the hundreds of active NBA players, MJ has actually gone on record already saying that Russell Westbrook, out of all people, reminds him the most of himself.
And obviously the respect that I have for Russell. I am truly a fan.
But unlike what MJ thinks, almost no one that I've come across has told me that Russ is the most similar to MJ, because Russ honestly is miles from where MJ was as an efficient, offensive powerhouse that could light you up in his sleep. As the years have gone by, fans and those in the media have changed their take on this highly subjective debate. But if we stick to just the players who are playing right now, not that long ago, it was actually Kawhi Leonard who was most compared to MJ. Now, that was a really interesting comparison, and I'll admit it was probably one of the better ones I've seen. I mean, back in 2019, Kawhi Leonard pulled off the unthinkable by bringing the Toronto Raptors their first title in franchise history. After years of falling victim to the absolute stranglehold LeBron James had on Toronto, famously dubbed LeBronto, Kawhi was able to will those same Raptors to the Larry O'Brien Trophy. And while he was doing it, his play style was very similar to MJ's, from movement to the falling away shots like that one that made Embiid cry, to the mid-range game, even height, weight, and hand size. But the only thing that held Kawhi back was him not being able to sustain that play due to injuries, load management, and not being available in the biggest games. And on top of that, while he did appear the most similar to MJ back then, and even in some ways now, the truth is Kawhi just wasn't ever the explosive leaper that Mike was. And speaking of explosive, that brings us to the man that everyone, from kids, teenagers, young and old heads alike, is saying that Anthony Edwards is a carbon copy of Michael Jordan. Now, it's time we finally get to the bottom of this popular debate. Like Kawhi, and even a few players before him, Anthony Edwards' play style and movement with the ball is nearly identical to what we saw with Jordan. Finesse, grace, footwork, shot selection. I mean, the kid literally has it all. But unlike Kawhi and so many others, Edwards actually does have that explosive leaping ability too, truly convincing us that he might just be the one. Now, if we step back and compare things like their size and their stature, Anthony Edwards is roughly as tall as MJ, weighs around 220 like MJ in his prime, and like we've mentioned, has that rare ability to explode like Mike. While Ant-Man clearly has a ways to go before even sniffing the same realm as Michael Jordan, he does have insanely similar movement. Watch how Edwards, like MJ, gets into spots, how he uses his upper body combined with his athleticism to bounce off defenders so he can get an open look at the basket. Like MJ, Anthony Edwards is elite at creating offense by using his athleticism to get to spots quicker than his defenders can. And if you know a thing or two about young 80s MJ, you know that his ability to hang and twist around defenders was second to none. And then how about the other side of the ball? Watch how Ant-Man gets into his defensive stance here. Doesn't it look crazy similar to the way Michael Jordan sized up his opponent? But undoubtedly, it's Ant-Man's use of the mid-range and his acrobatics that remind us the most of Michael Jordan. While many guys in the NBA are working tirelessly to mimic MJ's game, Anthony Edwards has the game come to him naturally. And it's just beautiful to watch, honestly. But then again, talent and mimicking your role models, that can only take you so far. In Edwards' case, his progression in each of his first 4 seasons is exactly what we saw from a lot of the players who went down as among the best to ever do it. At just 22 years old and coming off his 4th season in the NBA, Edwards has seen his scoring average rise each season, up to 26 points per game this past regular season. He's improved his outside shot, going from just 29% in his only season at Georgia up to an above average 37% in year 3 in the NBA. In the 2023-24 season, Edwards posted his highest averages across the board, from a career high in shooting splits to averaging a career high in points. I mean, what we're seeing from this 22-year-old kid is only a sign of things to come. And we can't forget about the other side of the ball either, because he took his defense up another level in 2023, finishing in the top 15 in defensive win shares. In 2024, he finished with the 3rd highest win shares in the NBA. Using his 6'9" wingspan and elite athleticism, he gives guys some serious problems on defense. But here's where the comparison goes to another level. And it has become the reason why Edwards is so closely linked with MJ. His mindset, swagger, and what is known as the killer instinct. After signing a max contract extension last summer, Anthony Edwards said his next step would be to, quote, kill everybody. Just recently, Edwards made a viral comment similar to what he said last summer, saying that he wants to kill any and everything that's in front of him. This approach to the game, coupled with his really pretty mid-range game, the fallaways and step backs, and the dynamic leaping ability, has seemingly convinced us once and for all that Ant-Man is the closest comparison to Michael Jordan that there is in the NBA. But despite all the great qualities Edwards has, and despite how similar he is indeed to Michael Jordan, the similarities kind of stop there. And that's not a knock on Edwards, because he is truly on his way to winning MVPs, becoming the face of basketball, and making waves in the NBA, no doubt. But there's just one harsh reality to this entire debate. Through decades on end of players getting compared to Michael Jordan, undoubtedly 100% of them failed to truly reach MJ status. And that's because MJ status is simply not even fair to begin with. After his first 4 years in the NBA, Michael Jordan averaged 32.7 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds, and won an MVP and a Defensive Player of the Year. He also led the NBA in total scoring in 3 of the 4 seasons, and even won 5 playoff games against some of the fiercest competition ever. And he did all that despite missing nearly all of his second season in the NBA due to a broken foot. The bar Michael Jordan set in his first few seasons was so high for future young talent that it's not even really fair to hold these guys to the same expectations. While Anthony Edwards is a stud with an incredibly high ceiling, MJ came out of college averaging close to 30 points per game. That is absolutely unheard of and will probably never ever happen again. Luckily for Timberwolves fans though, there is something to be said about a young player that is cut from that cloth. Someone who's got it in his DNA to accept himself as nothing less than an alpha male, and someone who has the loudest confidence and believes in himself, quality that we haven't seen much in a player since Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, by the way. But look around the NBA and look at how many guys came into the league shouldering heavy expectations. How many players have we seen in just the last decade that were touted as the next big thing with all-world talent, just couldn't quite ever live up to their potential? And how often does it have to do with a player lacking the poise mentally? Stop thinking, because I'll answer that for you. It almost always has everything to do with it. While Anthony Edwards may not be in the GOAT debate or even make it in the same stratosphere as MJ from a standpoint of overall production, consistency, and resume, he undoubtedly deserves to be compared to MJ in so many ways. You know, from the walk, talk, style, shot making, swagger, you name it. And if you want to call him MJ's son, well, I'm cool with that too. But when you set the bar so high at such a young age as MJ did, you can only dream of one day reaching a similar level. And with Anthony Edwards' game rapidly ascending, he made it literally impossible for fans and even players to ignore what he's doing. He's only getting better and better, and he's proving that on a big stage in the playoffs right now. All right, that's it for this one. Let us know what you thought down in the comments. Like, subscribe, share. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.